The views expressed on the Health on a Whim podcast is not a substitute for the medical advice of your licensed physician, nurse practitioner, or any other health professional whose care you are under. Consult with your healthcare professional about any matters relating to your health and health needs, and before beginning any new health program or implementing any health information discussed on this podcast or on whatismyhealth.com. This recording contains sensitive content, including references to drugs and alcohol, that may be triggering to some listeners. Discretion is advised.
My mind was so delusional to think that that was right. But again, from your child's best friend to your family's worst nightmare. I walked into detoxes and I told this story, to numerous people. I walk in, to some of the other people that speak and whatnot, and they're like, well, what's this kid's going to say? And I literally said, and I say it right now, I was ready to kill you with a smile on my face because I did not want to live. I didn't want to live. And I thought, you know what, if I take somebody else out with me, then it's their time to go as well. There were times I would take the car out and I would drive all the way to the South Shore just because if I was going to die, I was going to die closer to home. And I would do other things that made no sense. And thankfully, nothing ever happened. I eventually started to have to get breathalyzed when I would come home. I tried when I actually got hired. They took me on. I was super excited and all right, we're going to change my life. I'm going to turn it around. Like my fiance at the time, she was like, all right, like we're going to adjust here. Let's make some changes. She was like, we're not going out anymore. We're not doing this. It came down to any single time I come home, I have to be breathalyzed. And, I, of course, found ways to beat those things as well. I'd go about my day and then come home, blow the breathalyzer. And then while I was home, I would smoke and then I would drink probably like a 2 liter of soda and a lot of candy. Because if you're an addict and you're an alcoholic because of the sugars, you crave sugar. So if you're not drinking the alcohol, you're going crazy with sugar. So we're now into like the end of March 2019. And I completed training on a Friday. I graduated. And then Saturday morning, the VP called me up and they said, yeah, we're not continuing with you. And I was like, what? Are you serious? Now, I was going there drunk to the training. So naturally, I had an attitude. So they told me, no, it's your attitude. And that was it. That night, I said, screw it. I drank. I tried to keep it a little straight as best as I could. A couple of days later, I had left my debit card down. I went down to go get it and drank on the way there. Hung out for a little bit. I figured I was sober enough now to be able to pass a breathalyzer. So I told my wife I was going to get food at a bar. Went to this bar. The owner saw me and he was like, yeah. And he put down, I haven't seen you, puts down a beer and puts down a shot. Now I haven't seen this guy in a couple years. So I'm just like, ha. And after I had that shot, I'm like, oh man, the breathalyzer. Well, might as well just keep going. And I kept messaging my wife saying, oh yeah, I'll be home in a little bit. But again, just like that very first night we moved in, I disappeared off the grid. Eventually showed up, came home, breathalyzed me. I failed. I passed out. And then I woke up to her rustling some stuff around and telling me that my mom and sister were on the way to come take me to detox and rehab. And I was like, no. She's like, well, if you don't go, like, you're done. Like, nowhere will take you. Like, I'm not, your friends aren't, your family's not, like, nothing. Like, just know that. And I flipped her off and I walked out and I went into the car with my sister and my mom and we tried to get into the medical center. I couldn't that day. They said, come back at 6:00 in the morning the next day. I spent that whole night inside my little tiny room. Do you remember the little tiny room I used to have when I was a kid?
I remember that.
Really small. So I'm laying there and I'm just like, this is it. Like, I'm trying to talk like, yo, get me, like, I love you, but I don't think I could do this. And she's like, you have to. And I'm just like, you know what? Like, I'm mad at you. I hate you, but I love you, but I'm mad. I got the detox and I was like, you know what? This is it. And I actually ended up seeing a police officer who's someone we grew up with. And I was in my gown and I walk out and there he is wheeling in someone from a traffic accident. And he looks at me and I look at him and I'm like, and he just gave me a look like, I'm praying for you, man. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm praying for you. And I went into detox. The very first day, she drew blood from me eventually 4 times within a couple hours. And on the third time, I'm like, oh, like, what are you doing? No one else here has had blood taken from them besides intake. Like no one else took it again. And they're like, well, we think we see something. And I was like, don't be crazy. You know, like, I mean, I took all the other tests and everything came up, but now all of a sudden they're saying like, you know, it's something. So they took it the fourth time and they came back in the room and they said, listen, Rich, do you know your medical history? I'm like, no, I'm adopted. They go, well, we just want to let you know that you have adult onset type 2 diabetes, whatever that is. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, well, you gave yourself diabetes with the drinking. I'm like, so what does that mean? Like, what am I, like, what do I do? And like, jokingly, I'm like, no, I'm not going to drink, obviously, but like, can I eat chicken wings? Like, I honestly, like, I mean, joke, we got to bring it into a joke for a second, but I really thought like, oh crap, like, am I not going to be able to eat wings anymore? Like, this is insane. So I had to learn about what type 2 diabetes was and what causes it and signs that you had type 2 diabetes. And when I told her that some of the things that were going on with my body, she was like, oh, wow, really? I'm like, yeah. She goes, how long have you been experiencing this? I'm like, since I'm maybe like 21, 22 years old. She's like, oh, so then you've been sitting on this. Now, go back when I was like 21, I had to go to the doctor. I didn't feel good. And like that night before I was stressing about it and I couldn't sleep. And I ended up taking like a lot of Advil, some Tylenol, like whatever, like just to get me to go to sleep. And the doctor had told me, he goes, listen, your liver counts are really high. And I would definitely suggest do not have another drink or you might be in some type of trouble. And I was like, well, I'm not going back to you because you basically told me what I should not do for the next 10 years, but I didn't listen. So now we fast forward those 10, 11 years. And now here I am with a bruised up arm and having to learn about how to handle my diabetes. Now, when I first got in, my A1C, normal A1C is around like 6, 7. They want you below 7. My A1C was an 11.1, and blood sugar should be somewhere around 50, 150. My blood sugar was 700. So they had told me that since I had no idea about this, like that, had I not done what I did to go to detox, I probably would have just passed away in my sleep within the month or so, because it was so high and so aggressive and so untreated. And because I was also malnourished and only drinking alcohol and the 2-liter bottle of soda, they were like, this is it. Like you're not going to make it much more than this. And I had to relearn. I had to learn how to inject myself. I had to learn everything. And so now with my A1C, I'm back down now. I think my last visit, I was a 6, 7. My blood sugars now in the morning, everything's averaging about 70 to 150.
Wow.
It's naturally, I mean, now, obviously, in the very beginning, I was very aggressive with my eating habits because I was nervous. I didn't realize how much damage I was doing, but I obviously tested the waters and realized, okay, I can eat some of this stuff. It literally was mainly the alcohol. And throughout this whole process with the doctors, after 6 months, my numbers went down so much. And this one guy, I forget which doctor he was, but he had told me, he goes, so you don't drink anymore? I'm like, no. Like I said, I'm an alcoholic. He goes, oh, wow. He's like looking at your charts because he still at that point had all my charts from the hospital at detox. And he was just like, whoa, like this is such a turnaround. So like, what else are you doing? I said, I'm just not drinking. Sometimes I'll treat myself to a soda, but if I have like a whole 2-liter of soda within 2 days, by like the end of the second day, I'm like, I don't really feel good. You know, Chinese food, still a thing that, you know, I gotta mind myself with. But most importantly, you know, every day is a challenge. Every day is a challenge. I met a girl inside of detox who came and visited me from NA, and she was able to openly tell me that she had sold her body for heroin and that she's 3 years sober, and she had the beautiful biggest smile on her face. And I was like, if this works for her, it's gonna work for me. I called my wife up that day, and I told her, and I told my mom, I said, listen, I'm not going to rehab. I said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm going to go to detox. I'm going to finish this out, because I had the choice to leave. I was not brought there by police. I was brought there on my own. I could have left at any point, but I said, I'm going to finish this out and I'm going to go to AA. I had met another guy who knew somebody that I knew he was sober, and he kept trying to see me, yo, buddy, like come to a meeting. And I'm like, no, I'm not. So I called him up and I'm like, yo, I said, I'm in detox, bro. You were right. Come get me. And he goes, all right, man, I got you. Message me when you get out. As soon as I got out, I eventually got home. I got the medication that I needed to continue on with life. And I walked into a meeting and I met a guy and he gave me this bad boy, which I keep with me all the time on my keys. It's my 24-hour chip, my 24-hour coin. I held it high. I shared my very first day. I explained exactly who I was, that I had about at that point, I think like 6 or 7 days sober, which at that point was the longest I've gone since I'm, 19. It was an amazing accomplishment that stays with me every single day that I'll never forget. Walking out of detox and, having to go back and then seeing a girl who, unfortunately the system didn't work out and the situation didn't work out for her, and the look on her face saying, I'm screwed, I'm back out there. And I don't know where she is now, but I'm so grateful for everything that happened the way it did. I was blessed to have my now wife, blessed to have my family. I was blessed to have the rooms. I was blessed to have friends like you who literally just, once you found out I was sober, it was like, holy God, they got their friend back, and I was ready to be there. And I immediately said, after, about a month or so, I said, all right, guys, like, I'm back. I'm here. I'm going to be here. I wasn't here for you guys for a very, very, very long time. And I'm here. In the very beginning, I was very hooked on AA. I had to be. I needed to be. It's what I needed to survive because it works if you work it. And I found myself working with kids again and working with teenagers and young adults. And I found myself, caring more about them than myself, which is the power of kind of AA, where, you focus on yourself, but the more you listen to other people, the less you hear the negative and you hear their negative. Now, just as much as I know that teenage kids are goofy and they think they know it all. And it was like, I am so blessed that I got this job working with these kids and they all know it and they have me for life, because if it wasn't for them, obviously the rooms that got started, and I still stayed in the rooms a little bit during this, but if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have kept my sobriety as strong as I did, because you know what? They gave me a reason to live, because they and their wackiness kept me focused on like, hey, don't let them make the decisions that you made. I can't control it, but you know what? I can be a voice. I can be heard. I can be that positive example that look how much fun I'm having now. But look at where I'm at now and look at where you are. You guys are teenagers at a teenager job. I'm an adult as a manager at a teenage job. Like a teenager should be managing this now, not an adult.
I do want to challenge you on that, though. Not challenge you, but I just want to, I guess, offer this. I know you referred to it as like as a teenage job. I wouldn't be so hard on yourself that way. Like, you are where you need to be, and it doesn't matter if that job is normally. I think what you mean, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think what you mean is the job you have right now is a job that normally would be held by somebody much younger than yourself. And at this point in your life, this is not necessarily where somebody might expect a 30, somebody in their 30s.
Exactly. I mean, but honestly, I think an adult should handle that job that I had, because it was better that I had it, but it was where my mindset was. Right. It wasn't how I really felt. It was just kind of like it was kind of like my proving point to these young people that like, look, I mean, it took me a lot to get here. Don't go down that route where you have to like, go through absolute hell to get here. You could get here right after college. You could be here as a young adult. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. But it was what I needed, and it was perfect. Yeah, it was amazing, and I'm very grateful for it. And all those kids who worked for me, I'm still in contact with all of them, and some of them I've told numerous, and some of them have reached out. It's beautiful to be able to help some of these kids get on to their next life. And a lot of them tell me that, like, Rich, you were always so positive. Just thank you. thank you for being that positivity.
It sounds to me like that job is where you needed to be at that point in time, but also don't discount the fact that that's probably where a lot of those kids needed you to be too. So it's not just
there were 3, and one of them had told me, they said, you know what, if we didn't meet you, we wouldn't be where we are now. Like we would not have what we have now if it wasn't for you coming into our lives and taking us in. What, they had said, like, thank you for being you. Like once I left, because COVID hit, and it was like, hey guys, like I'm sorry, like I don't know what's gonna go down. Like I'm here, but I'm not really here. That this is as much as you're gonna get from me. But please use your phone. And like this person had said to me, again, Rich, just don't go anywhere. Don't go too far. And please stay with what you're doing because it saved us. And I'm sure it's gonna save somebody else. I don't miss it because even having this conversation with you now, like me and you have grown. Why would I want to, we'll start small right here. Like, why would I want to lose this? Why would I want to lose all the trust that I had from those teenagers at that job? Why would I want to lose a job? Because now as I got sober, then unfortunately COVID hit. Now, once COVID hit, I thought to myself, what am I going to do? I mean, if I wanted to go to a meeting, I can. Because at that point, I kind of drifted due to certain reasons. I drifted away. I was only going, not as much as I should have, but only just a little bit. And then, thankfully, to this we have here, Zoom, right. I was able to be a voice again. And I thought, you know what? Like, it's not me that I'm going back for. It's them. It's the other people I'm going back for. I hope that someone hears what I am saying and hears something that they can relate to and hear, really takes it in them and says, wow, like I'm just like that. So I went back to the rooms during COVID, but through these Zoom meetings. And then it got me to want to go back to work because I just couldn't do this unemployment thing. And I ended up going back to the gym. Wow. And I literally walked in and, I had asked earlier because that other bad incident happened like 18, but I had went back in 2019 though, like after sobriety, and I wanted to get, some lessons. So I had asked nicely, hey, listen, I know we had a rough patch. I said, but I'm better now. Can I teach there? And they had said, yeah, no, of course, like you're good. So I was already back at the gym, but not like really at the gym. And then when I came back during COVID, I literally just said, listen, I need help. I want to come back. I need hours. And they're like, yeah, do maintenance. And then the owner came up to me a couple of days later and said, hey, you interested in something a little bit more? And I'm like, yeah, like, what do you got? And they said to me if I would want to, shadow the general manager, you'll be buildings operations manager. And I said, yes. We were about to move to Maryland, my wife and I, like literally we already looked at places and everything. We were all set to go. And then I said, no, you know what? I think I might have something here that's going to be pretty cool. And I shadowed. And next thing you know, I was asked to be general manager. I was asked to shadow. And then I did that for about a month. And then he left and I took over October 1st of 2020. And I've successfully helped guide it through, the really crazy parts of COVID and, tried to retain as many members as I could and build up as much as I could based upon the knowledge that I got from everything. And I literally thank God for everything that's happened in my life. As hard as it was, I wouldn't change a single bit of it if I had a chance. I mean, that's literally a lyric to a song just re-altered. But it's true. It's 100% true that I would fortunately at the same time, would relive it all to get where I am now. Obviously, if I could, I'd make a few changes, but then, who knows what could have happened if I made those changes. But I'm truly blessed from a person who literally was a fall down drunk, pissed their pants, puke on their face, and just miserable with life, to now someone who's super excited about waking up every single day and going to a job that was a huge trigger to them to drink and proving it that, you know what, you're not taking me down. I had bad days, and one manager looked at me and goes, "Man, you okay? Like, I think you should go to a meeting," because I share my sobriety. A lot of people, anonymity, I protect everybody else. Right. I will always do that. But me, I share it because my shares have influenced close friends of mine's family members, coworkers, family members who knew me, who drank with me. And now they're just like, nah, man. Like, and that's the thing, like, which is shared in the rooms all the time. Is like, it's like, you look at it and you see people getting happy and healthy. And it's much easier to live unhealthier than it is to live healthier. I think we all know that. But eventually you see it and you see the smiles, you see the happy, you see the things start to come back. Then people start getting jealous and they think, well, you know what? If he could do that, I could do that. What does he have to do? Okay, well, just hit me up. You know, I'll tell you what to do. And it's up to you to do it or not do it. And it's a blessing. I'm very sorry to the people that I've hurt over the years and to the people that I disappointed. But I was blessed that my grandmother, who just recently passed away, got to see me get sober. You know, I got married in sobriety to the girl who literally loved me from the first time I said hello, to having to kick me out of our house, to had to freaking come see me and detox and have to watch her walk back into her car when we got married during COVID in her parents' backyard, which was beautiful. And it sucks to have to go through all that. But you know what? I wouldn't change any of it because I have so much. And there's so much that I have now I never would have thought I would have had. Who would have thought I would have the job that used to get me to used to trigger me to want to drink, the people that used to trigger me to want to drink. Now I'm their role model. That only happens when you decide that you want to take care of yourself. Addiction can be broken. If you want to break your bad habits, you have to look into yourself. There's nothing wrong. I mean, there is, but there's nothing really wrong with alcohol. There's something in here that gets everybody to want to escape here and here. If you focus on here and you focus here, life becomes relaxing. And they say it's the promises. That's real. One of my first meetings, this guy, there was 2 meetings going on at once. He said, meet me at 7. So I met him at 7. And then I saw all my friends walk and they went to another room. I'm like, oh. I said, I think I'm in the wrong room. He goes, no, you're in the right room. You're going to stay here. I'm like, he goes, here, read this. I don't read. And what I had to read was the promises. And I said to him, I don't do it. I don't want to do it. He goes, you don't say no. I said, well, whatever. Okay. And I was very mad. Or do it anyway. And right before I said, hey, how you doing? My name is Rich. I'm an alcoholic. But guys, I got to tell you, I'm not a good reader. But here we go. The promises. And I read the promises. And this guy behind me just goes, how you doing, Rich? I am also an alcoholic. And guess what? I also can't read. And you did a great job. And because of that meeting right there, I believed in the promises and I had faith and I trusted that things would come back to me. And here I am. And it's beyond my wildest dreams.
I don't know that my validation necessarily matters in the grand scheme of things, but as your friend, I want you to know, hearing your story, I know you've been open about it. I know, like, respecting the anonymity, I wanted to be respectful of that, but I also know you've been open, and I thought that you would be a great person to share. I mean, you've been very, open about sharing your story. I appreciate that, you're doing this. And I think that we're different in a lot of ways, but I think that part of why we're probably friends for as long as we have been, and we're, our similarities, we have similar senses of humor about things, and that's more surface, but I think we both care about people in a way that makes us want to.
That's exactly what I was thinking in my head.
When you said that you were hoping that your story could help somebody else get past whatever it is that they were going through, that, and you said, hopefully somebody can relate. I wanted to be like, I relate. I can totally relate, because you said you were a closet, you were drinking private, in totally different context, but I didn't share with anybody. Like, I don't know if you knew growing up that I had OCD. I imagine you probably didn't. And I hid that from everybody. It wasn't until the end of high school when I realized that people actually wanted to get to know me and felt that what I had to say was, had some kind of value to it. I started to kind of open up to people and say, like, listen, I have had OCD. At that point, it was 10 years, and people just didn't know it because it was such a new concept for my family. I think that they were trying to protect me in keeping this, as something between us, that, okay, let's not tell people about it because they're not going to understand. I think maybe it was rooted in, we didn't understand what it was, so how could anybody else? And I think I internalized that. It was always like, well, if this is this bad in here and I can't make sense of it, how is anybody else going to? But because I kept it to myself for so long, and once I finally started realizing people interested in what I have to say about it and interested in just learning that part of my life that they didn't know about before, but I started thinking, I want to use this. If somebody else can see what you went through, if you can reach somebody before it gets as bad as you had it, I feel like that's something that we have in common, is that we're trying to make something that was such a source of struggle for us for so long, even before we confronted it as that, take that and kind of turn it around and say, okay, this is what can happen. This is what can become of it. I think sharing a story, especially the hardest stories, and I can tell, I'm an emotional person. I try to hide it. I usually, I guard my emotions around certain people. But many times, and I saw you were you got choked up, and there were many times where I was holding back, whether it's that I just didn't realize how bad things had gotten for you. And I know you've shared stuff with me, and there were still a couple things you said that kind of just struck me and took me back. I know it's not easy to rehash some of these things. And I respect you for doing it and being so upfront about it. That's how people make that connection, and that's how people realize, okay, like, this is real. And if it can get to this point for somebody else, and they can still come back and have a life like the life that you have now, you're grateful, you're blessed. I've used the same words, like, I think we relate in that way too. It's I've come to view my struggle as a blessing in disguise too. And so everything about what you've said, everything that we're doing here, not just talking to me as a friend, but I think we're both trying to kind of help other people that we may never meet. Like, I really appreciate and respect that.
Another meeting after about a month or two of going to meetings, I walked in, like, there were some things I didn't admit yet, and one guy literally sat there and he was like, only a couple days sober, and he goes, oh yeah, he's like, the other day I was sitting in my car drinking a natty daddy through a straw, and then I went home and I passed out and I peed myself, and I really was like, oh my God, right here. As silly as and embarrassing that is, like, and he had said, he's like, because he has done this numerous times, he goes, I love these rooms because you can't say out in the real world that what you could say here, because here everybody relates. I want people to understand it, that it's okay to be in the rooms and be quiet about this, but it's also very good to share, whether you share just in the rooms or whether you share with your family, because the whole power of this, what helped me was just hearing other people. I thought that I was the only person that was doing what I was doing. Not at all.
If you or someone you know is struggling with substance abuse and addiction, help is available. Visit www.help.org/drug-abuse-hotline for a complete list of resources. Stay tuned for part 5 of this episode, airing March 27th, 2022.